In the last video, we dove into the painting of what is called a grisaille. The video was short, and it turns out this big scary art term is really quite simple. Paint the entire painting without color, which was far easier to do than I thought. Keep in mind that these techniques like grisailles and glazing, which is what we're going to be doing in this video, are very new to me, and so I'm exploring them along with you guys. Now that we have our grisaille finished and it has had a chance to dry, we are ready to apply color. Now, if you haven't seen the last video, make sure to check it out because it is how I got to this point right here. Let's get into the video. I'm going to start this painting in the same order that I did the grisaille. So I'm going to work on the sky and then work my way forward. For the sky, I've mixed a color using Ultramarine Blue, Sky Blue, Alizarin Crimson, Titanium White, and a little bit of, I believe it was, raw Umber. So I'm going to use that here and see how it looks. As I said, we are going to be trying a technique called glazing. Glazing is basically the process of tinting or staining the dry grisaille, or I guess you could call the grisaille a tonal underpainting. So staining it and tinting it with relatively translucent color. You see, my grisaille is totally dry now, which took about a week for me, though understand yours might take a bit longer. It all depends on each individual painting. But yes, I made sure it is dry, and what you see me doing here is glazing. How do you get translucent paint to stain the underpainting? Well, that was my first question when trying this out. There are certain colors, like ultramarine blue, for instance, that are naturally more see-through and can be applied over the top of dry layers to change the color slightly, or, as in this case, put color onto that colorless surface. So, I know this is a lot of information, but for the sake of clarity and to simplify things a bit, let me again make it clear what glazing is, and therefore we can know what it isn't and avoid any mishaps with our paintings. A glaze is a thin layer of translucent paint that colors or stains what it goes over. It's that simple. I must admit, as we move forward with this painting, however, that a lot of the paint colors I used were not specifically suited to glazing. For instance, titanium white is an opaque white that will totally cover up what it goes over. But it was the only white I had on hand to work with, and I really wanted to jump right into this. Ideally, you're going to be using a white like lead white for glazing, and likewise other less opaque colors. But let me explain how I got around this so you know exactly what I'm doing. I found out that I was able to go over the top of my grisaille with more opaque colors like sky blue and titanium white, for example, by keeping my paint super thin and adding a bit of linseed oil into the mixture. In this way, I could glaze over the underpainting pretty well. With that said, glazing can be misunderstood in this. We do not want to take small amounts of paint and apply them with large amounts of medium. Using too much medium can have very ill effects later on. So we want to make sure that we have a clear understanding, like I mentioned earlier, of what glazing is. But I don't say that to discourage you from trying it out, because glazing is very simple and I really like using it as a technique. It's a great way to get where you want to go with your paintings. I actually think that doing this grisaille underpainting, that was just the black and white, and then glazing over the top of it, actually saved time in the end. Right there, you saw I was using a larger brush, which was clean, to actually blend the colors that I had just applied. And here is a note that I made about that during the painting. Make sure to clean your brush that you're using for blending off on a dry shop towel before each time you go to blend, because otherwise you'll drag the previous color that you were blending with into what you will be blending. So you guys have seen how to paint a grisaille, or a tonal underpainting, if you watched the last video. And in this video, you're seeing how I am glazing that grisaille. Let me make a point, just because I am new to these techniques, that I really feel like it saved a lot of time. And for the result that I came out with in this finished painting, I feel like if I would have done this painting in my old way, this painting would have taken me a lot longer. That may not be the case for everybody, but for me personally, I have to vouch for using these techniques as a great way to save time and get exactly what you want. I find my yellow-green very transparent, which works out perfectly for glazing. I'm keeping my eye open to transparent colors so that I can learn and keep track of what colors work best for glazing. Alright everybody, I have glazed over the entire canvas. As you can see, it has color, so that is one layer of glazing. However, we're not done with it yet. I want to do some more glazing to it just to get it to the level that I want to get it to, which will include darkening the land portion, and also I want to add a little bit more saturation to the sunset colors in this cloud portion here, which is kind of the focal point. I'm probably going to add a little bit more gray to the sky. I think it turned out a little bit too chromatic, so I want to switch the intensity of the chroma to the clouds being very colorful, and then the background sky kind of a little bit more on the gray side. I want to add a little bit more contrast to it, so we're going to do some more glazing, and then when we're finished glazing, what we're going to do is we're going to put some details on at the end, just like we would finish up any other painting. Okay, sound good? Let's get into it. So what I'm doing now, so I'm taking a bigger synthetic bristle brush here. This is a filbert, and I'm glazing over the top of the sky again, tinting it a little bit more gray. I'm not really changing the value too much. It's still about the same shade of color. However, I just want to make it a little bit more gray, but as we get closer to the clouds here, I'm going to leave the edges of the sky behind those clouds and not gray them out, because I like the effect that I get where you have a little bit of a deeper, darker color here. If you look at my reference photo, you'll see that right here in the background sky, following that edge of cloud, it's very deep sky color, and then it just kind of grays out a little bit. I really didn't have to wait that long for my first layer of glazing here. It was just a couple days before what I did in the sky here dried. Makes it easy to glaze another layer. Okay, I like that. Alright, now I'm going to darken the foreground a little bit. Just like putting a wash over everything. And notice my brush strokes are going very quickly up and down while I bring it from side to side. That just helps the grass textures not get lost in this application of new paint. I'll darken it up a little bit at the base here. Alright, now I'm going to take these sunset clouds up a notch in their color. You can see I'm adding some red into it. It's not really glazing because the paint color that I'm using is a little bit more opaque. I think it was like a brilliant red or something. There you can see I'm using my glove and occasionally a shop towel to wipe away some of the paint that I applied maybe a little bit too thickly. At this point in the painting, I do believe that everything had totally dried again. So when I did wipe away some of that red that I got a little bit too much of onto the painting, it didn't wreck what I had already laid down. If what's underneath isn't dry, it's going to smudge everything. So keep that in mind. Here is a note that I made as I was painting. If you're wondering, right now, what I'm doing is adding a bit of shadow into these clouds here, because if we zoom up on our reference photo on those clouds, you'll see there is some shadow. So basically I'm mixing a color to match the shadow and putting it in, and I'm comfortable adding this much detail into the clouds because the clouds are the focal point. Alright everybody, this is the finished painting with color. I really like it. I say it's finished. If I wanted, I could let this dry and keep working on it. But I think for now I'm going to be done because I like where it's at. And yeah, this is what I imagined for the color when I did the grisaille in the previous video. So yeah, I like it. I think it's good, and I learned a lot, and I'm really happy I did this painting. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really enjoyed having you out in the studio with me today. Hope you learned a lot, and we'll catch you guys in the next video. Until then, God bless you all. We'll see you later.